All right, and welcome to the Vonu Podcast, the podcast making you invulnerable to the coercion of the state and the servile society. I'm your host, Shane, RAYO 2, coming to you from the Free Republic of PAZNIA, the self-liberator's paradise. To learn more about the Second Realm parallel network built upon a foundation of truth, peace, and voluntarism, just visit PAZNIA, PAZNIA.com, or consider joining our PAZNIA Committee of Correspondence on Telegram, t.me/PAZNIA chat. Today, I'm pleased to welcome back a returning guest, Rex, for the second installment of our unofficial series, building the Second Realm with Rex and RAYO. Rex was here for TVP number 171, wherein he gave a really thorough rundown on his PAZNIA-esque project and some insight into his views, ideas, and potential solutions to, I guess, some problems that we're also facing too. So that was definitely valuable. He also joined us for our second PAZNIA Second Realm Assembly, which was TVP number 173. Make sure to check those out if you haven't already, but I'll make sure to have Rex provide another brief summary, an update on his vision. It appears greenhouse construction has officially begun, and as such, more general status and progress updates are in store. So anyway, without further ado, I'm hoping internet's still hold up. The video's frozen, but Rex, are you there, man? Okay, and I will just mention for the benefit of the listeners, we do have a storm coming through right now. I mentioned to Rex in pre-show, and I'm recording locally, so he can't hear me right now. But yeah, we do have a little bit of a storm, and I guess the internet might be in and out, and you might hear some thunderstorms in the background. But anyway, one moment. Okay. There, Rex?
I'm here now.
Okay, cool.
Maybe the connection's better.
That was, yeah, it dropped out for a second. Yeah, it's green now. It was red for 30 seconds or so. But I was doing the introduction, and it worked out. I guess it was probably the better time. You weren't talking or anything yet. So anyway, I just, I guess, yeah, welcome back to the Vonu Podcast, Rex. How are things going?
Oh, they're good. We've got progress, and most of it is still just design phase, but the design keeps getting refined and getting better. So I can't complain, but it's changed iterations a bit, but it's still basic premise is still the same in terms of the greenhouses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a little model here to show.
Oh, right on. Okay.
The plan right now, we're gonna buy pipes that we can make this shape out of, and this would be a form. And then we're going to put this on a little turntable and spin it, because we need to have stronger at the base than we do at the top, since it's going to be heavier there's more pressure at the bottom. So we're going to add more wrappings at the base than at the top. So we'll wrap it once with some fabric that's not that strong, and then we'll wrap it on that turntable with some rope, polyester wire, and or we can use twine. There's various cords that we can use, and we'll just wrap it a bunch of times. We'll be going up and down like spooling a spool of thread, basically. Mm-hmm. And we'll spend more time at the base than the top. So we'll get that form ready. We'll set it into place, because it won't be too heavy at that point. We'll set it into place, and then we'll fill it with dirt and water, so that it's already pre-compacted. We won't have to wait for it to settle naturally over time. We'll just make it settle right away. And then so we'll fill it with dirt and water, and then let it settle and add a little bit more dirt in before we pull these pipes out. When we pull the pipes out, then we'll replace the void with cement, basically. We might use adobe mortar, but still with stabilized enough that it'll supply all the compressive strength, so that this shape will hold the structure. And we need to make about, it's going to be a 10-foot diameter structure. So to make a 4,000 square foot greenhouse, the total number of these is about 25, because of the entire site wide. The cost is going to be 25 of these to get the 4,000 square foot. The adobe mortar should cost less than $100 total for the because we're just using materials on site. So all we need is a small percentage of Portland cement.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? The wire will cost $2,000 to wrap 25 of these with wire that is strong enough to keep 16 feet tall. So this would be 16 feet tall and 10 feet wide. So the wire's about 2,000 if we buy twine from the IFA, like the local farm store, and it would be as low as, it gets really low if we extrude the wire ourselves. We buy the raw plastic materials and make an extruder and make the polyester wire ourselves. It gets down to like $300 of wire to wrap this. And if we do thin enough wire, then we need a lot of wraps, which actually can be a good thing, because then then we don't need as much to worry about the dirt going through our wire. So I was modeling with Geotex, which is geotextile, after I modeled it with GeoGrid, which is also another thing that they put under roads. Same with geotextile. They mass produce this stuff. It's really strong, and we can make cylinders out of it. This structure is recent because once I did some small scale models, I took some paper and weighed a cylinder, just a pipe, sideways to see what the breaking strength of that paper was. I tried newspaper, and one newspaper 1 foot wide could hold my entire weight, so that didn't work. So I used paper towel. So paper towel was weak enough that I could get a measurement. One paper towel width, which is like 11 inches wide, and then it's 2x because I was holding it on both sides with a form. But I fit 16 pounds of material in there before it broke through. So then I went ahead and tested putting just paper towel, which was what my model was just going to use Geotex at that point, which is just a fabric with no structural elements really. And it sort of worked, but it kind of has a tendency to tip one way or the other while settling. So to remove that tendency, we're going to do this instead. And since we're building a form like this, we actually don't need to use Geotex. We can just use wire and wrap the thing. So we'll put this on a turntable, spin it a bunch of times, make sure there's more wire near the bottom than the top. We can use like plastic wrap because it's really, really cheap compared to other fabrics. And since the fabric doesn't really matter that much, ideally, the fabric we'll use would be water permeable so that the water doesn't build up in these things. Of course, it's going to be open at the bottom anyway, so it's not going to build a lot of water, but water we don't necessarily want it sitting. We want it to go through the soil. But plastic wrap will leak enough. It'll be fine if we just buy this plastic wrap, which is 1 cent per square meter. So it's like 1/10 of a cent per square foot. And we don't need a lot of it. We just need to make sure that the dirt near the top, where there's not as many wires, doesn't leak through. Near the bottom, it's going to have enough wire covering it unless we use really strong cords. Like twine, they have some twine that'll hold 700 pounds, like baling twine for hay.
Yeah.
And you can get 4,000 feet of it for $50, $60. It's very cost effective. It's a very cost effective way of holding weight, basically. And to calculate the weight here, we have to consider the height above ground. So it's going to be 16 feet high. So at the bottom, you've got 16 feet of dirt above you pressing down. And that same pressure, you just calculate that it's also pressing on the wall just as it is pressing downward. So you calculate all the weight above you and then press it out toward the wall. So yeah, 10 feet by 16.5 feet times the weight with the safety factor. Because weight of per cubic foot of dirt is supposed to be 90 pounds, but we're using 150 pounds because that's like the most it'll ever be with water and gravel and a bunch of stuff. Anyway, this is building stuff. I don't know if we need to switch topics, but this is where we're at in terms of design and building, and it leads into the cost of materials, and the cost of materials is just getting very, very low. It's awesome. We're toying with $2,000 of material total to build 4,000 square foot of greenhouse space, and the intent is to get to $0 of material and 100% time investment. But right now, if we're getting anywhere close to 2,000, I'm like not worried about cost anymore.
Yeah.
We still are planning that each unit will be worth $30,000 or 6 months of labor. But if we get it down low enough, we're only worried about cost, so we're not worried about profit. Just because we don't need to, we'll make sure that we pad like the development costs for the land will be probably sitting at $3,000 each site, and then the material cost $2,000, $3,000 hopefully, and then the labor cost is where it's all at. So if you guys got labor, then good, come help build it.
Yes, and we'll definitely talk about that too. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that later on. So I want to get.
I was
some more
gonna
folks
say
on
I had help building a greenhouse, and you can show some pictures of that. Just a temporary
I did
structure
show,
so that we have a place for people to stay.
Yeah, and I did show those on screen, and that does not have the the building feature that you're working on now, right? That's just I guess a prototype essentially.
Right. That was just try and get things done with the materials and the design that I made that design as well, but that's above ground. It doesn't have the features of being underground, because this will be full of dirt, and then all you're going to do is stretch some greenhouse film over the top. We're making these tall enough that we don't need to build truss structures for the roof. We can just hang supports and just hang the actual roof. And if we hang the roof with material that stretches a lot before it breaks, which greenhouse film does that, and any additional support, we just make sure that it's something that has a whole lot of stretch before it breaks. Then anyone that is in that greenhouse and sees the roof start to sag more than they're comfortable with, they'll still be safe and have time to get out, if there's a lot of snow or something. And they'll also have the ability, it'll be warm in there, so there shouldn't be a lot of snow buildup anyway. But that's just some of the safety features of having a hanging roof versus a truss roof. Well, you can technically do that. It's just going to work just fine. And we just need the walls to be tall enough that you can still park an RV inside it and be inside that greenhouse, gardening 24/7 or whatever you choose to do. We're calling it a church so that we don't have property taxes or any other abuses of the state. And we're also making it all agricultural, so that there's really not a lot that people complain about. And we're just filling bags with dirt, so not a lot of building codes to worry about. So yeah, pretty cool.
Awesome. So I did mention the last couple times we chatted here on the Vonu Podcast, so people can go listen to that if they want to get more on your background and all that. But I want to ask, and also an overview would be good. Give people I guess a summary of your plan, your plan, your vision, and since you've actually started building, because I know when you actually get your hands in the dirt, so to speak, the vision can get clearer. So I guess any updates on that too that you could provide or that have come about over the past few months.
Yeah, so the overall vision, and I was actually it was a pretty good session with Jackie Kerouic too on the Road to Autonomy podcast just last 2 weeks ago. So that's another episode people can listen to that's kind of shorter and same stuff, but I think it's a lot lighter. So because sometimes I get pretty heavy, and that's okay. I like me, but let's go back to the beginning. Not my entire story, but part of it. So I spent, years in college, and then or university, wanted to do something that was meaningful, as opposed to not, I just didn't find that life is really worth living that much if you're not getting enough meaning out of it. So I did a little bit of work right out of college. I got an electrical engineering degree at the U of U, University of Utah. But I didn't like the work that I was doing, and I didn't have to work at that point because I had already made enough money, not a ton, but enough that I could live poverty without working. So I had an income-ish, investments really. Anyway, so I didn't work. I just basically spent years of my life meditating, low-key meditating in the back of my mind all the time, like what is actually worth working on. And after 4 years of that process, I found that once you're free from the things that bind you, be it money, be it the state, be it obligations, once you're actually free, then the next step is community, from what I found. So a lot of people aren't so focused on community when they've got other obligations. They've got to work, they got whatever. They pick their house based on if it's in the city that they need to be in for work. And then they pick the neighborhood based on if the house is on the market, as opposed to choosing where you live based on the people that are going to be there. So we don't have great community because it's not filtered. That's not the way we've filtered where we are geographically. I believe geography is important in terms of relationships and community, which is a form of, relationships. So there's people that I don't actually talk to that might be good people, but since they're not down the street, since they're not like my neighbor, then I just don't hang out with them that much. But if they were my neighbor, I would hang out with them a lot more. So the theory is, if we are able to get people to be in the same geography that are actually highly compatible as far as community wise, then this solves a problem that maybe this isn't popular, but trillionaires might have this problem. If they are completely free and they have all of their basic needs and basically all their other desires fulfilled, they might still have a need for people that are on their level and cool and whatever, that understand them. And also popular good people and not so popular assholes the same. All of us really appreciate when someone understands us. So if someone is an asshole and I'm an asshole, then we actually get along pretty well, theoretically, because that's just how it is. When someone else really understands you, things work better. So that's one of the basic theories on how we might organize society or communities. But I also admit that I'm more of an engineering and big systems philosophy type guy, not necessarily a musician or an artist, which I think the energy work, musicians, artists, types of people are the ones that would make a beautiful mix of communities, of personalities in communities. But anyway, nonetheless, the most basic premise is, at very least, if we can get people that are similar to be next to each other, that solves a lot of problems in terms of how communities work. And to overcome the issues that intentional communities have faced, it's just a matter of scale. If you can get enough people to participate and you solve everyone's problems, not just one intentional community with one personality type or one intention for that community. Instead, you find thousands of intentions, and then you pour 10 million people into there, and then I say pour or attract or whatever. You allow a higher scale, a higher number of people to participate in the system. Then it becomes useful. Like the internet with just one computer on it would not be much of an internet. The more, it's called the network effect in, I don't know what engineering world, but that's the only one I've been in. Probably the business world as well. The network effect is the value of the network becomes exponentially higher when all you have to add to it is linearly to make the exponentially higher value. So a network of 100 people is more than twice as good as a network of 50 people. And a network of 1,000 people is more than 10 times as good as a network of 100 people. So when you solve the scale issue, possibly, then you can actually have those intentional communities work. And I think that's the reason they haven't worked, because they've had to put so much effort into attracting people, but they also have to turn away a bunch of people because they don't have a place for them. Whereas as people enter the door into a system and there's a place for everyone, you not have to, filter out and turn away 99% of the prospects. You're taking all the prospects and putting them where they ought to be. And then you solve that issue of not having a high enough scale to solve the problem. Yeah. So that leads to the next thing, which is why we have greenhouses. Lowering the barrier of entry for people and increasing the draw, I guess, for people to try a system like this, where they are able to live off grid in a community, no bills. You just grow your own food. Utilities are taken care of. It's all off grid, right? These are climate controlled greenhouses. You're not worried about a leak in the top of your RV because you're inside. You're not worried about your heater breaking in your RV because it's climate controlled with geothermal heating and cooling. You're not worried about electricity because you brought that with you on your RV for the most part. There will be a few solar panels in each unit that stay there, but the other additional electricity that you want, you'll just bring it with you on your RV. So yeah, once people are set up, they won't actually have as many needs for the city. Not needing a city makes it so we can buy pristine land for cheap prices. Because if we have destinations as opposed to latching onto a city, if we have our own destination, then people could drive 2 hours to get there, and that's not a problem because there's all the services that they need.
So I want to, because I used this example before, and just to make it very clear for the audience, like where you're talking about here, it's like a second realm timeshare is the way that I think about it. Is in a sense, yeah. So if nomads, places nomads can go essentially.
Maintenance fees for it.
Yeah, and I guess you could plan your travels around the greenhouses too. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities for sure.
Yeah, and it would be like timeshare and then integrated with blockchain so that you don't need any KYC to have reputation, in a sense. Like if I let someone rent my house, I kind of want to know that the insurance is going to cover whatever goes wrong and that they're not likely to cause harm. So I don't just rent my house to any random stranger. Even with Airbnb, you're going to only rent to people on Airbnb plus people with good reviews on Airbnb. But that doesn't require KYC. It just requires that someone puts up a high enough deposit and or reputation that they've acquired to make it safe for you to make that bet, to say, okay, the gain is worth it. So this system is going to be able to accommodate that, where basically you'll work 6 months and you'll be able to put that 6 months of labor into a wallet, and that wallet won't have to be connected to you. It's going to be up to you whether you know that password and remember that password to that wallet. And that wallet can own the timeshare, and it would be connected. Every timeshare is connected to an actual piece of greenhouse, basically. You can call it real estate. Technically, legally, the words are funky if you get in someone else's dictionary, but for the words we mostly use. So we could call it real estate. You've got your stake, which is your value asset, the base value asset in the wallet. And that stake, one stake is 1 minute of time that you worked or someone worked, right? So we assess the value, not assess is the wrong word, appraise the value of each constructed greenhouse based on how many minutes of labor it would take to make it, according to the average that we have at the time. So if at the time we can build one greenhouse with 2,000 man hours, then 2,000 man hours would be the number of stake you'd have, which, minutes. So it would be math 60 times that. But I think we're going to get lower than 2,000 hours, or not 2,000. It would have been 1,000, because 2,000 is like a 1 year, typical 8 hour per day, 50 weeks per year. But I think ideally we'll get down to 2 months, which would be about 200. No, like 350 hours per greenhouse. But that includes the time that it would take to earn the money to buy the land and the materials, and the time that it would take to build the greenhouse. So that's what we're calculating as the stake. So let's say you've got, back to the blockchain thing. Say you've got 1,000 hours worth of stake. Your stake is like your deposit when you rent a place, where if there's a dispute, you could end up losing that stake. So you don't want to trash the place, because that you worked for that, right? You put in, someone put in, either you put in money or you put in effort, but someone put in effort. So there's no reason to waste that. So you don't want to trash the place, because your stake is at stake. Also, your stake is connected to one or more units that are presumably the ones you built. So although everyone's sharing their houses, you still do have one that's sort of your responsibility. Meaning if it gets trashed, then the blockchain could say, that one's not worth, not that the blockchain would say it, someone else would raise their hand in the DAO and say, hey, I tried to rent that place and it's burnt down. So I don't know why that guy's still earning points for, like, timeshare credits for owning that thing, because he didn't maintain it, he didn't rebuild it. So you have that level of responsibility for the one you own ish. But technically, all you do is a password to a wallet, and then the wallet owns the stake, and then the stake is connected to that unit, but the blockchain is the one that owns the unit, technically. And so what you get is rewards for owning stake, and your rewards are points. You get 1% per month from whatever you own of stake. You get 1% per month. Those are called points, and that's what we use as the currency for renting and reserving and bidding, basically auction style, on where you're going to live. So when you're in a community of 20 houses, and it's like the nicest community, 20 greenhouses, and it's like the nicest community that the blockchain has on it, that the DAO has on it, then there's going to be some competition. So you're going to have some settings in your wallet that say, hey, I'd like to keep staying here, and I'm willing to pay up to 4,000 points per month to stay here. And then everyone's going to have those preferences in their wallet, and they're going to be able to bid and outbid you and whatever. But ultimately, if there's 20 units there, and the lowest bid that's actually staying there, the max they're willing to pay, or the guy that got kicked out, actually, the guy that couldn't stay, maybe he was only willing to pay 800 points per month to stay there. And so everyone only has to pay 800, even though your maximum is 4,000. So that just keeps you higher on the list of priority as far as likelihood that you're going to get kicked out. But there's that. And then the way we solve community is we use the same system where there is some desire to stay in certain places because they're nicer. Maybe surrounding area, closer to a ski resort, or closer to the fishing you like, or the climate's better outside. We've got climate controlled greenhouses, so you don't have to worry about the climate inside, but maybe you like a better climate outside. Maybe you like better travel, whatever. if there's more desirable places, the way we solve community is that the community DAO, which is the organization that the intention of that organization is not just to provide housing in mass for people that want to have a place to live where they don't have to pay continuously maintenance fees just to keep themselves alive. Instead of just targeting that demographic, we're targeting the demographic with community DAO of people who want to find people that are awesome people for them. And the community DAO has this ability to give a 75% discount on people's rent. So let's say everyone's paying $800 supposedly to stay in this community, nicest community. But since the community DAO has said, hey, Rex, this is the place where you should live. I've got three circles, live over there, or over there, and you'll get your discount. If you live in any of the other places, you're paying full price. So since that was one of my discount areas, then I'm actually only paying 200 points per month to stay there. So that's a little form of incentive, even though if everyone's trillionaires, money and everything, just the incentives go away. And so then you have to start looking at real value. And I don't think cryptocurrency is real value. I don't think fiat is real value. I think time and attention is real value. But if you understand that, and community is real value, then you'll still participate in the community DAO. And if you don't understand it, well, there's an incentive. Hopefully you're still addicted to incentives by that time, like money incentives. But yeah, it stretches your budget longer. So a person that's following the community DAO, instead of working 6 months to have enough points to stay in a certain area, they would only actually have to work a month and a half to be able to afford that area, because their ratio is it's benefited by the community DAO. So yeah, there's the crypto side of it, and how we're trying to use the crypto to solve community. The highest goal is that we solve community, and that I've heard some people not enjoy the way I say that. I'm an engineer, so I come from, like, solving things makes sense to me. It sounds like a normal word to say, but if you say you're going to solve people, then they're like, wait, what? I'm broken? It's like, no, don't worry about it. I'm not solving people. I'm not solving community. Community's not broken in that sense. It's just like the way I think things through. I do think community's broken in the sense that I don't know who my neighbors are, and I didn't choose my neighbors, and they didn't choose me based on how well we liked each other. I bought a house because it was on the market. That's why I bought it. That's not a good filter. If we cared so much about community, we wouldn't be making the choices we are. But we've been in slave mode for so long. We've been in slave mode. That's fine. Slave mode's not bad or wrong. It is painful, and you learn a lot. So you give and you take. What I'm building actually isn't for people that are trying to experience the growth that you experience from slavery, which I think it's extremely valuable. I think hell is valuable. I just don't want to be there right now. I'm ready to take a trip out of hell and see how long I like heaven. And I do not anticipate that my higher self is going to be okay with me sitting in heaven forever. I anticipate that these things are cyclical, and we're going to be back in hell eventually, learning and growing and experiencing. But while we're in heaven, it's just going to be more low-key in terms of that type of growth. It's going to be like you went from the gym to the spa.
Right.
Or no growth, like,
or not. Yeah, I guess just.
I mean, we hope we don't atrophy, but atrophy sucks. Like, atrophy still can feel painful, but it's just a different type of pain. It's like, oh, I wish I was hiking that mountain right now. Well, when you're on the mountain, you're like, oh, I wish I was not hiking this mountain right now. Like, I wish I was at home watching TV. And both are right. Grass is always greener on the other side. The grass is green on both sides, just depending on what side you're standing on. And I'm just opting out of slavery and trying to do it in a way where I build a world where the entire world opted out of slavery. So if I've got a neighborhood, let's say there's 12 houses on this cul-de-sac of trillionaires, who's going to fucking mow their lawn? If all the poor people, all the slaves are like, peace, y'all, enjoy your trillions. And they're like, sweet, we're trillionaires. We can have anything we want. We can buy anything we want. But I'm going to have to buy a robot vacuum because no one's going to come vacuum my lawn or my house. Robot lawnmower. There's things that you're going to have to do if you're going to eliminate slavery from the world that you build, not the wider world. The wider world needs everything that it needs. And sometimes that's slavery. Yeah. I mean, I don't say that because I think it needs to exist in my world. I'm just saying, like, I value the fact that if I were to choose slavery, there's a place for me to do it. And I do think that I have chosen slavery and I'm done. I think working 9 to 5 by necessity, relying on something that you don't create and God doesn't create, like money, relying on money, it's almost like a form of slavery. You're tied to a system and you don't even print the stuff. You don't even make that. So I think it's not wise. Yeah. And relying on other people isn't that wise either for your basic needs. Like, someone needs to come, and in order for my car to work, someone else needs to go to school and learn how to do it. It's like, maybe we should redesign cars so that people can fix them themselves. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe we should redesign where we get our food so that we don't rely on supply chains, because supply chains is kind of a risky business to, your entire life. How are you going to live without supply chains? Well, maybe we should build that. So we're building that. No supply chains needed for you to eat, drink, sleep. What else are your basic needs? Oh, you want to be healthy? Well, you'll probably be healthier if you're eating food from your garden that hasn't been sprayed with chemtrail, whatever's in the sky, because we're inside a greenhouse. You don't have to breathe that air. You can breathe the air that you create between you and God and the plants, little symbiosis, but no one else. You don't need the IMF, the world leaders, the WEF, the banksters. You don't need any of those people to allow you to breathe good air. You don't need the United States military to stop criminals from putting bad things in the air if you control your own air, which was another reason why greenhouses came about, because we can do a lot by ourselves, but how do you control the air you breathe? Greenhouse was my solution, or not my solution, but like my answer when I asked that question. It's like, well, I guess if you have a barrier between your air and everyone else's air, you can control what air you breathe. And it turns out some air is really healthy for you. In the wilderness, it's like there's drugs in the air. I say drugs just because it's like chemicals that you breathe and they change your state, emotional, mental health state. Wouldn't that be cool to have a permaculture garden that is targeted at making you feel good just by breathing? You're breathing in your vitamins, Yeah, this is all crazy stuff that goes into it. And it's not that crazy. It's actually, luckily, it's just getting so simple. I love how simple it's getting. When people are once we build these, people are going to see it and they're going to be like, yeah, they hardly used any parts. Yeah, it turns out it only takes 2 days to fill 25 of these, which is how many we need. 2 days with an excavator fills 25 of these. Like, what cost went into it? Like, it's going to be real easy for people to look at it and say, because believing is, maybe we can't tell this to everyone, but people's belief is what keeps them where they are. So making something in the physical world where people can look at it and it's really simple to say, yeah, I mean, I see it right there. It's like baling twine and saran wrap and fucking Sorry. And
It's all good.
baling wires, saran wrap, what is it? Adobe mortar. We're making posts out of Adobe mortar. How are we going to do it? We're going to make posts out of metal, make a form, fill the thing with dirt. We got wrapped around the outside. We filled it with dirt in the inside. We soaked it with water and all that. Now it's ready. Everything's dried out. We pull the forms out and we use a hose with the grout pump. We pump those holes, the voids, full of mortar, cement mortar, Adobe mortar. And now this thing is actually pretty like structurally sound. It's not going to move. It's not going to tip over. Even with settling of the dirt inside, as long as the Adobe mortar cement doesn't settle, we're good to go. It's going to hold all of our the wrappings. It's going to hold all the wrappings in place. And we're saving by wrapping it ourselves because we're doing two things. We're getting closer to the base material. The base material starts out as oil underground. This is the process to get, if we're using plastics, right? We can use other plant-based things too, like hemp rope or something. But with plastics, it starts underground as oil. They pump it up. They turn it to a gaseous state from a liquid state. And in that gaseous state, they separate out all these different chemicals, which become solids. So then they've taken the ethylene and the propylene and all these different things and natural gas and liquid natural gas, which is natural gas, and then like gasoline and diesel and all these different things. They pull them out as gases, and they're like little teeny particles. They're not liquid. They're honestly like teeny particles of solid. And then they put them in a chamber where they nucleate, which just means they start to form like you would think of moisture in the air forming snowflakes. It just likes to form in a certain way. Well, these poly chains like to form in a certain way to make these plastic chains that are fibers that are strong. So then they become all these solid pieces, and then they push them into an extruder. At that point, it becomes powder. They take the powder out the bottom that they pulled out of the air. They take the powder, they crush it, melt it, and then they put it in these little pellets. We can start at the pellets. I mean, because I don't have an oil well. I don't know how to harvest oil from underground, but we can start at, that's a pretty low point in the production process. Not much has happened yet. We can start at the pellets and we can create our own polyester wire and then wrap it around here. And if we were using geotex, which is still a very low, it's a low on the amount of changes or time or transportation that's happened to the material. It's still very basic material, but if we use geotex that's strong enough for the bottom, we are using twice as much as we need, because you only need full strength at the bottom and you need zero strength at the top to hold zero amount of dirt, and you need half strength in the middle. So the amount of strength we'd need at the bottom, we would be using twice as much material as we'd need if we went with just super strong geotex, which was the plan before. And the plan has just recently changed where we're like, if we can get this done on site with less cost and more of our labor instead of someone else's labor, then we're winning the race to $0 material. And I think land should cost $0 myself as well, because who had to work for the land to exist? God only, apparently. Like, I don't know who had to work for my land to exist. Now, all the improvements on the land, it's, someone worked, right? But if it's raw land, I think it should be free. So it's probably what it's going to be eventually. As long as I don't feel bad stealing it, it's going to get stolen. Just joking. But, there's ways to legally take things that would otherwise be unethical. But I think that's one that's ethical. It's like, if someone spent money on their land, you can give them what they spent. But there's no reason for land to cost money when no one's using it and it's vacant. It's raw land. It should be free.
Yeah, especially like all the
Anyway.
all the federal BLM lands out west for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of beautiful spots
Yeah.
out there for sure. Yeah, lots of places that could be,
Yeah.
populations, areas for people to live. But um, yeah, I guess speaking of community and all that, I know that obviously like from the description you laid out, like you need people to come work on these greenhouses and they can get a stake by get a stake in this in the system in the network and the community by doing so. And there was a gentleman in our PAZNIA committee correspondence chat, AJ, who I think was been out there helping you, and you guys have been interacting.
Yeah.
So that's good that connection was made. I guess how many people you got out there so far? If you don't mind me asking, I'm just curious. So, I'm curious how it's going. I guess
Right.
how you're looking at the
Right now,
progression.
it's just yeah. Right now, it was just AJ and myself that built the greenhouse that you guys saw,
Oh, okay.
and now I'm taking a few weeks off. I've been doing a lot of design work and also communicating with people in China because I thought I was going to buy the materials from them. I was talking to them about GeoGrid and then Geotex, and then conveyors to move the material because we do have some scrapers, which are big tractors that scrape the ground. I might just opt for an excavator though, even though I thought scrapers were the right thing to do. Anyway, we have scrapers. We can hopefully trade the hours of scraper hours for excavator hours so we don't have to pay anything else for machinery. But overall, it's still doable. Like if we spend less than $10,000, honestly, on materials and rental and not labor, everything but labor. If we spend less than $10,000 on material and rental and land, it's still extremely reasonable for a climate controlled, for me. I know that everyone's different, but for me, that's a hella good cost for a 4,000 square foot of area where you can park your RV, set up hydroponics, set up permaculture, no taxes, no water bill, no electricity bill, no bills. The only bills you have are the ones you choose, right? But the system's not going to bill you again, right? And I say that obviously if you were here earlier, you heard me talking about the way that it works with the timeshare style.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's true. But you're spending stuff that you're earning because of work you already did. Okay. And you're not enslaving anyone to do it. So there's zero reason for you to feel bad about spending something that is interest bearing. You're only spending the interest. You're never spending stake. The only time you'd lose the effort you put in, the only time you would use that up is if something went wrong with your greenhouse or you had to pay because you damaged an area and someone noticed, after you stayed there, someone else said, there's a problem. I need to get a hold of the owner and see if it looked like this when the last guy got here, because this is crazy. They report it. There's a conversation, there's arbitration, and somehow it gets resolved and someone might have to pay. Makes sense? And what you pay is that effort that you already went into. So you might have to go work again if you damage something. It all seems really logical on the simple scale, This is how life works. But we can make it simple, which is what we're doing. As far as, because if it's simple, it's believable. That's the way I've been working here.
That's true, and I will say, so you're talking about simplifying things, and like food's not that hard. I've been learning. Been just took on raising food a few years ago, birds and ruminants, and it's not, you got to figure it out, but it's not super complicated. And like talking in terms of like energy or engines, we talked to Sky Huddleston for our Breakthrough Energy series, and he's working on a Bork engine, and it's like one wrench in 5 minutes, and you can have that entire engine apart. So like there's a lot more benefits to it, but in terms of simplicity, it's like it's so yeah, it's easy. Yeah, it's simple. It's not like if you overhaul an engine in a normal vehicle, like you better an expert that might take all damn day, and like 1,000, obviously 1,000 parts or whatever. So yeah, that's yeah, it's great to hear you're simplifying. I guess this area that I hadn't really put too much thought into. So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's just so it's just so simple on a lot of things that it's probably just the sign of the times or whatever that everything's being revealed the way it is, to me at least. And I think to everyone that wants to jump on board, it's like there's a lot of stuff that was always simple. Here's an example. The reason that they were able to achieve high fuel efficiency rates, since we're talking about motors and engines and energy, one reason why is that fuel that is liquid, it cools down as it evaporates. So if you pour gas on your hand, the liquid is going to get super cold while the evaporation process happens, because there's an energy loss basically from the fact that it was in a liquid form, and now it needs to go to a gas form. It has to take some energy from somewhere to get to the gas form, and then it combusts. Well, what we do with carburetors, this is 2 or 3 weeks ago, I realized this, and I'm like, it's so stupid what we've done. We're all just under a spell, basically. What we do now with carburetors is we spray mist, which is still liquid. It's not vaporized yet. We spray mist into the engine. Then the energy has to come from somewhere to turn that mist into a gas state before it combusts and heats up and expands. But we could have turned it into a gas. We could have injected that energy in the gas tank itself in terms of heat from the atmosphere, and then we wouldn't be wasting that energy every time we fire the piston. They got like 300 miles per gallon on a car back in like 1970 or something. Mm-hmm. These engineers were trying to figure it out, and they did. And one of the times when someone has done this, because it's probably pretty common and simple, it's a simple thing. It's a simple explanation. It's a simple thing. One thing that they notice is if they put all the gas in a sealed gas tank, so there's not like air, oxygen coming in, it's just gasoline and it's sealed. And then they put it under vacuum so that they can pump the gas state gasoline out, and then the liquid state gasoline is there evaporating. It's under vacuum. They're pulling the gas out. What happened to their tank is it got like frost on the bottom. It got super, super cold. Even in a hot, hot day, they had ice on the gas tank. It's the same process. It's the same reason. The reason is they were pulling gas out of the gas tank, but it was gas. They were pulling gas fuel out of the liquid fuel tank, and that to become from liquid to a gas state, it had to pull energy from somewhere, and it's pulling it from the atmosphere into that gas tank. And all that energy we could be using from the atmosphere to our gas tank as thermal energy would actually help us drive down the road further. And so it's funny that it's simple and we missed it.
No, that's amazing. Like so that's
simple and we missed it.
So I mentioned Sky. George Wiseman is he's been done a lot of work with hydrogen and Brown's gas for like replacing acetylene welding torches. But yeah, he got started. I guess one of his starts was in fuel saver kits, like in the 80s and 90s. And yeah, 25% increase in gas mileage with like $100 worth of parts from the hardware store, and the tutorial video is his 13-year-old nephew or granddaughter doing it. It's like and except for one soldering part, she couldn't do the soldering, but everything else she did herself. So it's like, Jesus Christ, it's that easy. And yeah, 25% more miles per gallon. Mercedes, all these corporations have had patents on this stuff for 100 years. It's been known, obviously. But that's it's that dependence in all sorts of ways. And then just the if you got to pay a lot for the fuel, and you aren't using if you got to pay a lot more for fuel, then they're making more money. So yeah, it's pretty incredible. And Sky and George also provided that same explanation on fuel, so it's great to hear you, so that I guess the audience can get a third interpretation of that, because yeah, they got very animated about it, like, are you kidding me, it's such a scam. And in their own way, but yeah.
Yeah, it is, but the world is a scam, right?
True. Yes.
One day we'll wake up, we'll open our eyes, and we'll be like, what the hell? you know, like they're in the higher realm. We're probably asleep right now in this dream state, you know, something like that. But it's interesting. And I think this is just the path that we're on, at least for, there's going to be people that maybe this thing is a cycle and some people just stay in the slave cycle and they don't notice that there's an awakening and that some people left. But the people that leave, it's just like stuff was so simple. We're just like, oh my gosh, how did we miss that? Oh, how did we miss that? And we could be angry that it was by design, someone else's design, but I don't buy that myself 100%. I think that we ultimately are in control, but it's really like
True.
our higher self or whatever type of God someone wants to believe in. And so in a sense, it's like it was intentional. It's like watching a movie and then wiping your brain and believing the movie's real. And then when the movie's over, you're like, wait, what's happening? Oh, we're getting out of the theater. Oh, I remember. Oh, this was fake, you know? So anyway, simple. Things are getting simple. They're getting cheap. Yes, more people out here will be good. There's a place for people to stay. They can stay in that greenhouse. There's not a lot of room for a ton more RVs in that greenhouse, but if you bring like a tent or a hammock, like you can totally stay in there. And there's people there. AJ's there, at least. And I travel out there from my house at 25 minutes away. So anyway, we're going to start building this system, which will consist of building this mold. We'll probably build 2 or 3 so we can have multiple and get this one done, started getting filled while we get the other stuff. But yeah, it should take about an hour to fill each of these, an hour on an excavator, because an excavator can turn about, I was just looking it up today, per day they can do on the low end 600 tons. So that's like 100 tons per hour. So where did I leave off? I think I said 600 tons per day. So, but like 100 tons per hour is what an excavator can do on the low end. And so, yeah, one of these should take about an hour to fill. It should take, hopefully, probably 2 guys. It'll take them an hour or a little more to make the mold and get it ready, put it in place. But yeah, this is just crazy. It's going to get so nice, and we're going to have places where you get to breathe healthy air. You don't have to worry about bills, other than like cell phone bill and stuff. But maybe you don't need a cell phone when, you know, or maybe we'll just have internet on site and people will just share the internet. Who knows? There's other blockchains solving different things. I'm just trying to solve community, and my method for solving community was to lower the barrier of entry for people to be geographically proximate or close to people that they enjoy being around. Removing those barriers of entry, or those barriers between doing that, was what I wanted to do. And the first step is you got to have a place for people to go. And that's what we're building, is a place for people to go. And then in addition to that, it helps if they don't need a job, like they don't need money. So we're building that too, so that if their soul is ready, if their soul has the courage and intention to even come for a week and check it out, then they'll have the option to do that. And I think that's how most people will enter. We'll probably have events and things at these community locations, and some people will come for a week event, and then they'll realize that they don't actually have to go home, and they'll be like, sweet, and they'll just stay. But that's, I think, how people will be introduced to all of this. So yeah, we could also use help marketing and stuff, but ultimately my instruction from the universe is just build it. At this point, that's the first priority, is get it built.
Yep.
there's methods that we can use to solve a lot of the other problems, but we're going to have a lot of help when that happens. Other people are going to be helping build and helping build out the other systems like the blockchain and the um, other systems we need. In terms of sanitation, in case anyone listening doesn't know what a biodigester is, they're pretty common / easy. It's another one of those things that was always simple and nobody realized it. But if you let's say you take cow manure, instead of just dropping it on the ground and letting it off gas on the ground, if you put it in a chamber where you can take those gases and make them useful, you get biogas that you can burn, and it doesn't smell bad or anything. It's fine. You can burn it in your stove, or you can burn it to make electricity. And that's all manure and all wet organic matter. So like vegetables that you're going to throw out and you were going to compost them, you can compost them instead of in a dry bed, dry or moist. Instead, you compost them in a bath of water that is a chamber, and it's going to off gas. And all those gases are flammable. They off gas from the bacteria eating and processing. The bacteria in the water will do that process of converting the energy from the state that it's in, like broccoli or whatever. You put in the broccoli in this vat of water, and then it's sealed on the top enough that you're collecting all the gas, and then you can burn the gas, and the resulting water is very good fertilizer. So that solves sanitation for people, because yes, you can put human manure in there too. So instead of needing a dump station for your RV, I don't know what we have to do in terms of how we would treat like if you're using your RV black water tank. I don't know what we need to do to make it so that it doesn't kill the bacteria in the biodigester, but it's got to be a simple answer. So you take your black water from your RV and you pour it in the biodigester, and then the biodigester, you also put all of your food scraps and everything else that is appropriate for the biodigester. We just learn the knowledge of how it works, and then we get gas to burn in our stove. We get fertilizer for our garden, and we don't have to build a septic tank.
Wow.
And it's still just a garden. It's still just a greenhouse. No permitting required. Bags of dirt with greenhouse foam over the top. That's it. We don't even have to keep the cost down. We're not putting garage doors on there, because garage doors are like $2,000 for a garage door, especially if you want one that rolls up and it's 14 feet high so your RV can get in there. Well, instead, what we're doing is you've got your greenhouse film and your wiggle wire and your channel, in case you've ever put a greenhouse up with those tools. And so you've got this removable wall. So when it's time to move your RV into that greenhouse, you remove the wall, drive your RV in, put the wall back on. Really simple steps. You're not putting your RV in and out every day. You're probably going to use, if you need a car, there's going to be a carport too, where you don't actually have a door to it. So you'll have a carport, you'll have a place for your RV, and you'll have indoor outdoor living where you can enjoy climate controlled, garden conditioned air. Anyway, so yeah, that's the update. Thanks for having me on. This was pretty good.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and yeah, I was curious, I was excited to hear, because I definitely, I'm not sure if you mentioned the electrical engineering background before. You might have, but hearing you talk is like he's definitely got some sort of engineering background. So I was curious to see, what has what the progress was, and the viewers on YouTube and Odyssey saw the pictures and the videos that you sent. So for anyone listening to this podcast, they can go to either of those places. And I showed them a few times throughout our discussion. So that's great. Get involved if you guys are interested. And once we get the PAZNIA map up going, and once he gets further going with multiples of these out and such, we'll get them added to the PAZNIA map and directory too. So yep, go ahead.
Yep. And just so people know, we're in Beaver, Utah. Like, I don't know if we mentioned that yet, but Beaver, Utah, this is a $60 shuttle ride from the Las Vegas airport, and tickets to Vegas are cheap from any city. So if you'd like to come visit, we will pick you up from the shuttle drop off in Beaver, Utah, and you can take the shuttle is called Salt Lake Express.com or something, Salt Lake Express
Nice.
shuttle, and it's $60 to get from Vegas to Beaver, and that's where we're at. So we're about 7-minute drive from Beaver. We'd pick you up from the shuttle drop off.
Nice.
So yeah, please come visit and see the place, and the people that are able to stay and visit longer / work. That's good too. Right now we're going to be starting to build this process, because I'm pretty damn sure this is the right process. I'm holding up for those listening, I'm holding up the form of this cylinder that has up and upside down triangles. There are 12 posts all around the circumference of the cylinder. The cylinder is a small scale model, but the total height would be 16 feet high and 10-foot diameter cylinder. And the posts that you would be seeing if you're looking at this, they're diagonally going down to points, so that it's got sturdy, structurally sturdy. And here's another one that's just a triangle.
Yeah.
But that's only 3 sides. This one's 6 sides. And so this has 6 posts, whereas this one that we're going to build has 12 posts. And these cylinders are going to be stacked next to each other in a row to make one big long wall. And it's going to be full of dirt. So that's your geothermal. The first step to geothermal heating and cooling in these greenhouses. The second step is, if you have 2 wells, not per unit, but for the entire site, you have at least 2 wells, you have a water coming in and a water return, then you can cycle the water underground in the aquifer. You just put the wells not too close to each other, and then you'll cycle water into that aquifer and up out of that aquifer. You can have as much access to the thermal properties of the water in the aquifer as you need to cool your greenhouse in the summer and heat it in the winter as well. There's not going to be as much need for heat in the winter because it's a greenhouse and it's underground, but you can still use geothermal. Also, to generate electricity, if you make a Stirling engine, you pull the temperature of the water on one side and the temperature of the sun, concentrated solar or something, parabolic trough concentrated solar. We can do things. There's lots of ways for us to get energy. Anyway, I'm rambling, but please do come. Contact me on Telegram. I'm not on Telegram as much anymore. I'm mostly just working, but get a hold of me somehow, and come visit and come work. Let's build this.
Certainly. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on and sharing, Rex, and congratulations and good work on everything you've done so far, and getting that initial model built, initial prototype, and yeah, lots of good progress. I'm happy to see it. Definitely happy to see it.
Well, it's a pleasure, and thank you for sharing, giving me a place to chat. It's good with more people that can see this. So, because eventually we'll just not be talking to anyone on Telegram. We'll be actually talking to people in person, and we won't really have any need for external relationships when we start to solve this problem. We'll just enjoy our lives,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And travel from one place to the next. So.
Certainly.
Okay.
Awesome.
Take care.
Yeah. Thanks, Rex.
This is great.
All right, guys. There you have it. I guess the second installment of the building a second realm with Rex and RAYO episode. Anyway, I'll mention in terms of the PAZNIA network. If you've got a piece of land, a van nomad squat spot, guerrilla gardening plots, health food stores, etc., that you'd like to add to the PAZNIA network map and directory, you can visit PAZNIA.com/join. Fill out the form, and when I get more submissions and get some technical things figured out on the back end, I'll put together the first iteration of the map. Alternatively, if you're a Vonuan or a nomad seeking access to the PAZNIA SecRealm network, whether vetted map access to join the PAZNIA Seed Exchange or whatever, PAZNIA.com join 2 is the form to fill out there, and I'll reach back out soon. And finally, please do consider joining the PAZNIA Committee of Correspondence chat on Telegram. We're about 150 self-liberators strong now, and I'm loving the growth and the conversations. Just visit t.me/PAZNIA chat to join. LibertyAttack.com is your home for all things Liberty Attack publications, privacy tools like ghost pads and ghost phones, liberty and strategy-focused books, apothecary items, and we can also help you share your story if you're an author looking for help through the publishing process. VonuPodcast.com is your home for all things Vonu, full show archives, articles, resources, free books and audiobooks, and much more. And lastly, PAZNIA.com is the place to go for all things the Free Republic. Thanks, Strikes, for joining. Thank you, the listener, or the viewer, and the viewer for being here. And we do hope to see you here at Veritas soon, maybe for our first event here from happening April 13th to 17th, or any of the others we have throughout the year. PAZNIA.com/VonuFest for our full event schedule. Thanks, guys. Until next time. Cheers.